Hello and welcome back to the FEZ show. My name is Jack Giordmaina, and in the UK currently, we're going through quite a bit of a tropical climate, but the two people that are joining me on the show today know all about tropical climates because Mr. Pickering, Jack Pickering, he's been in Indonesia for the Jakarta E-Prix, and someone who is a resident of Indonesia and Jakarta is Aisha Daulay. How are we this afternoon?
It's still hot. I mean, like, it's hot here, but it was the same there, but add the humidity. So yeah. You say that I've adjusted to heat. I will never adjust to heat. I will moan when it gets 17 degrees. So yeah. But yeah, no, good to be back.
Oh, Aisha, probably if you were in the UK right now, you probably want to put a coat on and some gloves on. Like, how are you?
I think in Jakarta, it's still the same. It's still very tropical, but luckily for us, it's rainy season, so it's not as hot as the Jakarta E-Prix. Because as you can see, I still have like 10 lines and everything from the event, even though I live here, raised and born actually, but like it's still very hot that day. It's an honor to be joining you guys for the first time. This is also my very first Formula E Zone show. So I was actually kind of nervous at first. I told my friends, like, what if I cannot speak English suddenly? But I think it's all good now. I really hope that it went well. So yeah, so good to be having you guys for my first ever Formula E Zone show again.
Honestly, your English is probably as good as ours, right? Straight away off the back, right? It's fine, don't worry. And I'm sure you'll learn very quickly with the FEZ show. We just talk Formula E. We all love Formula E. Everyone who listens, everyone who watches. So I am sure it will be fine. But the first thing I want to talk about, and Pika, I'm going to come to you first on this, okay, is obviously there was a lot of political fought over this Jakarta E-Prix. You know, we were getting tons and tons of messages in the lead up in the years before about corruption in Jakarta and so forth. But I just want to get your perspective as someone who's an outsider first, who came into that event. How was it perceived? Was there a lot of sort of anger against it? Were you welcomed with open arms? Like, how was your experience?
Well, firstly, I just want to say, as the person who mans the Twitter, the amount of notifications that I did get tagging Formula E Zone in stuff about Jakarta, we are just a media outlet. We do not. So yeah, I mean, all this political stuff, it's not really my forte. But from what I could tell, the event was a relative success. I think the track was really cool. I thought the race was good. I think we expected a little bit more, and like, because we thought, oh, the humidity and the heat will affect the batteries, and also keeping tire temperatures in check, and then the threat of rain as well. We thought it's possible. There was actually a crack of thunder about an hour before the race. Both Aisha and I were in pit lane at that point, but nothing emerged from it. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the event. But yeah, it was very hot and humid, and speaking to the drivers afterwards, I think everyone is the agreement. We want to come back, but can we come back when it's a little bit cooler?
Aisha, obviously you were covering for Formula E, and you were following sort of the story in Indonesia, obviously with a lot of political protest that was going on beforehand. How did you, as a native, find? How did the event sort of take place? Was it a good event? Did you think it was a success in a whole?
I think it was like a really big success for all of us motorsport fans, but not for the heated up political situation right now, because I think there are a lot of people who are unhappy about how successful the event is and trying to get like the, what do you call it again, like the bad side from the event, because I think there was like a fire shortly after the E-Prix, but no one actually wanted to show that, especially like the journalists in Indonesia, because someone actually said that they got paid to not write those kind of news, because the political situation in here is really dangerous, knowing there are like like they're knowing there are groups, and there are like so many news as well about like those people who are in the events, because Indonesians are not really that familiar with Formula E, not until days before the event. So they actually got paid and like free tickets from like these promoters who are like the icons or like important political figures in Jakarta. So I think it's really dangerous in terms of talking about like the political events, especially with the budgets that I was talking before the show started. The budget initially was supposed to be like 68 million rupiah. I don't really know how to convert it to like GBP, but it's as much as that in rupiah, and then they change it again to like 128 million rupiah. So it's pretty dangerous in terms of like talking about that. But the event is really great. I think it's a success. It's one of my favorites. Like my first on the list was supposed to be Singaporean Grand Prix, my very first race event, but then they changed to like Jakarta E-Prix, because I told Pico as well that all of the people in Formula E are so nice and they're all are very welcome about it. I've been to like a handful of Grand Prix weekend, but this is probably the best in terms of like hospitality, fan experiences, and all of. And I have just found out that all the Formula E drivers are very welcoming and nice to their fans. So it's a really good perspective for me and Pico, because Pico has been to like a lot of Formula E races. This is a really great first time experience in Jakarta E-Prix. So yeah, I think I would say that.
So 68 million Indonesian rupees, as you said there, Aisha, it equates to about 3.7 million pounds. So I suppose, Pico, in terms of why that political battle happened prior to the event was, Jakarta, they were saying, you got so many poor people in a sense, that people living in poverty, and is it right spending 3.7 million on an event such as the Jakarta E-Prix, the correct use of that money?
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. I mean, we've seen other races, so like the Canadian E-Prix that happened a few years ago, that was allegedly something along the lines of 24 million or something like that. I think Canadian dollars, so I think that is about something along the lines of like 12, 15 million pounds or something like that. So yeah, it is understandable. I mean, I don't want to get too political, but we all have governments and they don't usually spend the money wisely. So yeah.
You could say the same in England. But anyway, I want to talk about the track because, and obviously, talk about the success of the event. Formula E, Aisha's, they put out the statement saying that 13.4 million people watched it live on the free-to-air TV across the day, and obviously there were 60,000 fans in the stand as well, so it was a sellout event. So in terms of it being a success that way, the event, that that's pretty good.
It is pretty good. I mean, it's supposed to be good because compared to like Mandalika, which is like another big event that's in Indonesia, like the budget is like way higher. Wait, no, actually, Formula E's budget is like way higher than Mandalika, keeping in mind that it's a MotoGP event and it's a Formula E event that's supposed to be cheap. So like, I think this event is highly what do you call it again? I think this event is highly influenced by this in terms of like how successful the event is. It's really successful. What's like bad about the event is, so like I visited the circuit just a few days before the event. The stands are not even ready, especially with the roof there are that falls down because of the wet weather. The stands are not even ready. Stands like the Apaya Girls on Track area or the Alliance E-Village area are not even ready, just like a day before the event, which is not fully prepared yet. But in terms of the circuit itself, I think it's good. I talked to like this person who tested out the circuit for the very first time in this electric car. He said that it's good, but it's not as good as like Mandalika or any other circuit that have like more funds or like more times to do it, because it's very like, well, it's in a sudden, because like we didn't really plan this out to be in Ancol. Ancol is like a really crowded place with like beaches, and then they also have a place for like the biggest theme park in Indonesia. So like thinking there will be like another circuit for Formula E, it's super crowded. And the tickets are also very cheap for Indonesian as well. They're not helping Indonesia's economy, because with 250,000 rupiah, you can go to Ancol in like all of the areas. They're supposed to be like more expensive than the tickets. So like keeping in mind that you have like so many facilities into this area, they're supposed to be more expensive than Formula E ticket, which means that the Formula E race is free for all of the people to watch, even though they cannot really come inside the circuit. So I think it's pretty successful, but the track looks nice as well. Some really said that it's bumpy. That's why I don't really pay attention to like the drivers' interviews before that. But does any drivers complains about how bumpy the circuit is, or like how they will reduce the speed rather than like compared to like other circuits? I don't really know if it's that's like the initial problem, but the circuits are not ready and it's bumpy and it's also based on a bamboo or something. There are like so many news about it. So yeah.
So to put it in perspective, that's 250,000 rupees. It's about £13, £13 for a race ticket, which is, you know,
Yeah.
even if you're looking at the London E-Prix tickets, it's, you know, the highest is £100. So, you know, so it's far more expensive than, let's say, the Indonesian ticket. But what I thought was interesting as well, obviously, you talk about now the bumpiness of the track. Obviously, I think we can probably get away with that because it's a street circuit. Right, so obviously street circuits are quite bumpy. So maybe even though it was quite new and freshly laid, maybe they wanted to do something that sort of resembled a street track per se. But I remember us talking prior in the weeks before about, you know, how quickly this track was put together. Do you want to just, Aisha, just give us the sort of a round of how quickly the track was put together? Because you said it was only done within, you know, a couple of months.
Yeah, we were supposed to build the track in around Monas, which is like our national monument and also an icon to Jakarta city itself. So like if you visited that area in Monas, which is in Jakarta's old town, so like they already have like constructors and they have also like ruined some parts of the national monument that means a lot to us. The track we're supposed to build there, but there are a lot of people who complains about it and like how unworthy Formula E is if they want to make the track there. So like they refuse to do it, even though they have cut down like a lot of trees in the area. So like they change it to like Ancol, which is another part from Jakarta, even though it's kind of far. The well, the location itself, I think it's too crowded, keeping in mind that they have like so many other facilities, plus they have to add a track there. It's like, I mean, it's good for the people in Jakarta. They can just like access so many places in one place because they're only like a few kilometers away to like Indonesia's biggest theme parks, and also they have like a small sea world there. So I think it's good as well. But for the area and for that budget, like for that amount of budget that is like basically higher than Mandalika itself, I don't think it's worth it. Plus, it's going to be temporary. So that's like from what I heard from the circuit, they only have like a 3-year contract and they're going to change it again somewhere in Jakarta. Because if you see like the grade, I think it's 3E or something. So like it's not a really good circuit in terms of that, and it's only a temporary circuit, which is a waste of money. But like the people in Indonesia need the money more for like those floated areas, for those people who are still struggling in economy. So I don't think it's wise. But since it's all about political situation that I don't really understand, maybe it's good for those important political figures who are going to be a president in the next 2 years.
So in terms of, just to wrap the short story short, because the political side of things, unfortunately, right, it's like it's hard to separate sport and politics sometimes, because we want sport, we want to talk about just what happened in Formula E and was it a great event, but when, you know, we've seen it in Vancouver for Formula E and that race not happening, and it's just political side, but on a different spectrum. It's hard to separate the two. But in this sense, it seems like that it was more about spending that money to put Indonesia on the map, but sort of, you know, welcome how like events are like the World Cup, for example, which Qatar will be doing, and so forth. It's trying to open up, and Saudi Arabia, what Saudi Arabia are doing in motorsport at the moment with Formula E and Formula One, is sort of saying that, you know, come to us, we're open, you know, don't forget about us, come and visit our country. So do you think the whole reason that Formula E went to Jakarta was simply just to attract more tourists?
I hope so. I hope that's the initial plan, or maybe Formula E is added to like Jakarta so that we can have more international motorsport events. Because before Mandalika or before sports like MXGP, we don't have anything that's really interesting. So we don't have any tourists that are looking for like international events in Jakarta, even though it's a really good place. I mean, I wouldn't say Jakarta it's good because it's too crowded now. We have like so many events, so many agenda to do. So like maybe they can just like move it to some other parts of Indonesia. They're like less crowded. They need like more attention. They need more tourists than Jakarta because we already have like enough foreigners in here. So I think it would be more wise to like move it to somewhere that is less crowded, like Lombok, for example, because since the tsunami happened just like a few years before MotoGP was there, it helped a lot of like the people who live there, like their economy and stuff. So I think it would be wise to move it in other place than Jakarta. But since Formula E, like, and their target is to basically get as many fans as they can to like popular cities, like talking about like Paris, for example, that's why Jakarta is ideal for them. But in terms of like the budget and everything, I don't think it's wise.
Pico, thank you so much for your silence. We'll give Aisha's voice a little bit of a break, and we'll talk about the race because obviously the race was won by Mitch Evans and so forth. Just talk to me about the race at Central, how you found it and so forth, and obviously Mitch Evans doing really well, keeping his championship challenge alive.
Well, yeah, it would from my seat in the nice air conditioned media centre. It was a decent race. Yeah, obviously I think we expected a little bit more. There was the threat of rain and heat, and the heat and humidity might affect the battery and tyres. I mentioned this earlier, so I'm going through it quickly. But yeah, I think it was still it was all right race, and I think we have now established the front runners for this for like the run to the final race of the year in Seoul, race 100 in Formula E's history. Yeah, we've established the top four. There's now only 12 points separating Van Dorn to Evans in. I think Evans is fourth still, and I think Van Dorn's in the championship. Jack's looking it up, so he will confirm that once I finish speaking. But yeah, I think we are now on the final straight. We've only got 4 events left. And they come thick and fast now. Marrakesh is at the start of July. Then we head to New York middle of July, London end of July, and then Seoul mid-August. They come thick and fast now. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this unfolds. But the top 4 have now broken away. Robin Freins is now, I think, something along the lines like 20 points off of that top 4. Obviously, he had a disappointing weekend. He hit the wall in qualifying, meaning that he had to start at the back of the grid, and then he could only make his way through to I think 16th or 17th. It was not a great day for Envision Racing, but yeah, and then you've got another little bit of a gap to the rest of them all fighting. One thing that I did find interesting is Andre Losser is now ahead of Pascal Wehrlein in the championship, which is very interesting considering that Pascal's been the one who's been the Porsche's main driver basically this season. But yeah, the event I thought it was fantastic. Please, Formula E, stop doing sessions at 7:15 in the morning. I would like a lie. But
trust me, there has been many events. I honestly don't know why they start so early Formula E, because expecting fans to get in there early, but I do mimic that sentiment in a sense, or copy it in that. I agree. Yeah. But Formula E, they used to start at 7:30, 8 o'clock when we used to have 4 o'clock races, but now that races start at 3 o'clock or sometimes even earlier, it's a bit manic. And then what's the point of buying a ticket if you can't watch the whole event? Sometimes the session starts, especially in Berlin, right? The session has already started or is starting as the gates open. So you're not even in your seat and the session's already started. I just find it crazy.
Yeah. I did actually see an article. I think the race put out an article earlier this week saying about how they should be going for like more evening races on occasion. Maybe Berlin turn it into a little bit of a festival, because Tempelhof, I mean, like Tempelhof has hosted some festivals over the years. Why not turn that into a festival like what Vancouver was trying to do this season? But obviously we have to wait till next year for that. But yeah, Jakarta, it was fantastic. One thing that I would like to point out with the Angkor region, so if you leave Angkor, you then need to pay to get back into Angkor. It's basically its own separate little area from the city, and so yeah, I do understand why it's probably not the best location for Formula E, but I did really enjoy the track. The drivers enjoyed the track. But yes, as I said at the top, I will echo the sentiments of the drivers. Love to go back, but please when it's colder.
When is it colder, Aisha? When is it colder?
I don't think it's ever going to be cold in Jakarta, because usually it can get hotter than that, especially in Ancol, because like I don't really know in like Jakarta, like for example, just like the main areas from Jakarta, Jakarta is a capital city, but like Ancol is a bit up there. I don't really know if you ever visited that area. It's like hot, but like it's different. It's like a different kind of hot. I don't really know. I don't have any like reasons why they're like that.
It's one of those places, then it sounds like, where people go on holiday and people are like, oh, it's a different kind of heat. You go to India, for example, and people come, it's like, oh, it was boiling, but it was a different kind of heat. It was really dry. When people come to, I was having a conversation with someone actually yesterday who was from India, and said, when you go to India, she said, I don't sunburn when I go to India, even though it's much hotter than the UK, but when she comes to the UK, she seems to sunburn. She says it's just a different type of heat here, which I thought was kind of funny. So so it's amazing how the sun or the heat works in different ways, but I suppose that's a different podcast for a different day. So just to wrap up what was Pico sort of mentioning at the beginning, so obviously yes, Van Dorn still leads the championship on 121 points, with Jean-Eric Verne in second for 116. Then you got Eduardo Mortara on 114, and then propping up the rear of the sort of championship challengers is Mitch Evans in fourth with 109. And as Pico was saying, Robin Frimes is on 81 points. And it's a shame for him, really. Envision had the car potentially to challenge, but it's just kind of faded away. So what we're going to do next is kind of have a quick chat. Pico, I'm going to bring you back in on this. It's about Gen 3, because drivers are now starting to test the Gen 3 car, and the public will get its first look at the Gen 3 car a couple of weekends' time at the Goodwood Festival of Speed.
Yeah, obviously it's nice to see. It's nice to see it in the flesh. It's nice to see it on track. I mean, I still haven't seen one of the Gen 3 cars in person yet. But it's good to see them getting its run out. The Mahindra's getting a run out of Goodwood next weekend, which is really exciting. So we will get to see it run properly. Whereas we've just got stills from the likes of Porsche and Jaguar, who have tested their cars so far. But yeah, it is getting to that stage, because obviously the championship. Next year's season we'll be having testing again in November, and then we'll have the season kick off in Mexico in January, is what I've heard. So it's not much of an insight, but there you go, Mexico, January.
That's interesting. Okay, I don't know if you know the information on this, but you knew I was going to jump as soon as you said this. So is there any specific reason why you think Saudi Arabia will not be hosting the, because that was,
I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
Right. I was going to say, but let's discuss it, because when they signed that contract, right, it was a 10-year contract that they'd signed, and effectively to host the race, to be the start of the season. So off the top of your head, because I suppose you found out some exclusive news here, but in terms of, why do you think maybe Saudi Arabia might not be hosting the first race?
I genuinely don't know. I think I'm not sure whether it's partly Formula E, because obviously when we go to Saudi Arabia, we use the Arabian weekend, which is Friday and Saturday, not Saturday and Sunday. And so the opening race is on a Friday. I'm not sure if that's potentially one of the reasons. Maybe they want to go a little bit further into the year, because one thing that happens around that region, if you go in the winter months, when the sun sets, it gets very cold. However, if you go further into the year and the sun sets, it's still relatively warm. So that might be one of the reasons why they want to do that, because obviously Diriyah is a night race. So that might be one of the reasons. The weekend might be one of the reasons. I don't know.
We'll have to find out.
I'm literally plucking things out of thin air.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that knowledge there, though, Pico. But we'll come back to the Gen 3 sort of conversation. Obviously, it's great to see the cars out. We've had Nick Cassidy as well, sort of testing the Jaguar as well. And I think Porsche have also been doing some testing. Aisha, I'll come to you. What are you most excited to see about with Gen 3? You know, now that we've seen the car, like, we'll be seeing the cars race, obviously, next season. What are you most excited about for Gen 3?
I think there are a lot of things to be excited about in terms of talking about Gen 3, especially the liveries, because I'm living for it. I love those new liveries and new looks from teams. But other than that, I think the speed. I think I've been wanting to see how fast these Formula E cars can go with the new Gen 3 power. I think it's going to be like a lot more faster than Gen 2 cars, because they have like a double capacity of speed in Gen 3. I also cannot wait to see how fast these Gen 3 cars can go in Jakarta's street circuit, knowing how dangerous and like bumpy it is, blah blah blah. But I really hope that these Gen 3 cars could actually make Formula E more interesting, because there are a lot of talks on like how Gen 3 is like the new era, and like maybe one of the things that could make Formula E really interesting.
Yeah, for me, it'll be interesting to see like how cleaner the racing potentially comes with Gen 3, because obviously the wheel covers have gone now. Formula E was very touring car-esque. I'm sure Pico will agree to that statement. It was very touring car-esque, and maybe those days are behind us now, Pico.
I hope not. I really enjoy the Robin is racing. It's like field to Formula E, because we only usually get that in stuff like BTCC, DTM series like that. But to have it in an open wheel series as well, I think I that's what I really like about it. And the thing is, you can break a little bit of the car off, and it will still, you can still race. It's not like F1 where you trim a little millimeter off the front wing and then you have to change your front wing, or at least you do in the F1 game. But but it's that's what it's like in the F1 game. But in real life, it's a little bit, you know, if you trim a little bit off, then you should be all right. You're just slower. Whereas if you do knock off part of the, if you knock off the wheel cover, you can still race relatively competitively. Obviously, there are still like different things that will happen, but yeah, Gen 3, I'm really excited for it. I think the fact that, yeah, as Aisha was saying, the double capacity, like we got the 2 batteries, which is going to be interesting. Yeah, and I hope this just brings like a new field to Formula E, and if we can go quicker, and I think there's more cities coming in next year. We're going to India for the first time. We're heading to Brazil. Yeah, I cannot wait. I think it's going to be a fantastic season. However, we still have 7 races. We've still got effectively half a season to go in Formula E, and we're already chatting about a Gen 3.
It'll be here before you know it. But just to wrap up the show, they've got 2 things to do. We'll do quick predictions for Marrakesh, but we'll talk, Pico, I'm going to come back to you. Marrakesh's track times, a bit different. Maybe something that they're thinking about with this heat that you're saying, because obviously going to Marrakesh in July is going to be very, very hot in the desert in North Africa. So it looks like there's about a 6-hour waiting time between the end of qualifying and the start of the race. Can you explain a bit more?
I think there's a multitude of reasons for this. I think yeah, the main thing is we're going to Marrakesh in July. I don't know how a fat ginger like myself is going to cope in Marrakesh in those sort of temperatures, especially if it's 32 degrees here in the UK. What is it going to be in Morocco? I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned about what that's going to be. But yes, it's going to be different because of the heat, but also the fact that it is the British Grand Prix, and I think Channel 4 have been a little bit because obviously here in the UK, Channel 4 have the live rights to the British Grand Prix shared with Sky. And so their entire day is going to be F1 and W Series. And so the race is actually taking place at 5 p.m. in the evening. So it will be an hour after qualifying for the Formula One finishes, which leaves enough time for Steve and the team on Channel 4 to wrap up and then hand over to Vernon for the Formula E. But there is this 6-hour lull. Qualifying finishes at 11 o'clock on Saturday morning. I think just because it would just be too hot to go out at that point. So practice 1 is going to be on the Friday evening at 5 p.m. Practice 2, 7:30 in the morning on Saturday. Qualifying starts at just after 9:30, and then finishes about 11, and then the race starts 5 p.m. on Saturday, July 2nd. Do not miss it.
So Aisha, to wrap up the show, who's going to win the Marrakesh E-Prix?
Jack, we got like less than a minute. Do you think it's enough?
One word.
Okay, Marrakesh E-Prix. Since I'm a fan of Mitch Evans, so I think I'm just going to go for him. I think he has won like a handful of like E-Prix, so I think I'm just going to go for Evans again. And Jaguar, even though I'm kind of worried with Sanford falling down in the championships. So I think I'm just going to go with Evans, or else I'll see another brilliance of Eduardo Mortara showing up at the podium. I
The
hope
longest
so.
one word in history, Pico.
Oh.
Antonio Felix da Costa. He won there last time out when we were in there in season 6. I think coming back here will be really interesting. But yeah, honestly, it's Formula E. So once again, who knows?
Thank you so much, both of you. Aisha, you have been an absolute joy. It's been absolutely amazing listening to you and your insight on Jakarta. Thank you so much for coming on. And Pico, also, thank you so much for coming on as well. Right, thank you so much for listening to the FEZ show. We will catch you after the Marrakesh E-Prix. See you soon. Bye.